In 2010, close to 300,000 new people called Canada home. Why they come differs, but with each arrival comes the potential for a better life. Canadians have a well-known and lengthy history of welcoming immigrants. What you may not know is that in recent years, the tiny and beautiful Prince Edward Island has become the first stop for many newcomers. On average, P.E.I. welcomes 1,400 newcomers every year, the bulk coming from China. The rest are from the Middle East, South Korea, and Taiwan. Most newcomers fall into three categories. The first are economic immigrants, who have financial resources, are more stable, and pay an investment fee to come to Canada. The second are family class, sponsored by family members who are naturalized citizens. The third are refugees. P.E.I. welcomes between 45 and 80 every year, working with the federal government to determine how many to accept. The federal government has a variety of programs to help refugees settle. But across the island, churches have also stepped up, doing their part to ease the transition. Faith Bible Church is one of them. Mark Barrett is pastor.
Well, we started out working with the people from Burma, or Myanmar as it's known now. A lot of them came from refugee camps and really didn't know how to do anything as far as shopping, you know, what was in that can and what's under that orange piece of skin, you know, and they didn't know how to buy clothes, and so we just started kind of helping them.
But Barrett admits he didn't actually know there were so many newcomers living on the island.
You know, you see immigrants walking around the streets, but it's kind of a normal thing, and you don't really give it a whole lot of thought because a lot of people come to the island. It's a vacation spot.
That was until a parishioner from South Africa who was on the island studying pointed it out to him.
He landed at my door one day. He said, "Did you know that there's about 2 immigrants a day that are moving to Charlottetown?" And I said, "No, I had no idea." He said, "Well, would your church be interested in helping us to reach out to the immigrants?" And so I don't really know what to do, but yeah, I'm willing if, you know, God opens that door. And it seemed like God had opened that door. And so we just started walking through the door.
That door led to the church teaching English as a second language, he says, which led to other outreaches, like a soccer program with youth from Nepal and a clothing pantry.
They love soccer, and they brought them into our gymnasium, and they played soccer. And then afterwards, he would have a little Bible study with them. We're also helping them in just very practical ways. They need to go to the doctor, and they need to go to the grocery store, and they don't have an automobile, and so they call and we pick them up.
What's exciting, he says, is that some of the newcomers are now reaching out to others, and it's forced the church to get creative when it comes to sharing the message of Jesus. Barrett recalls a Sunday when his congregation was made up of Canadian, Chinese, and Russian parishioners.
One of the men who had been saved the last week, who spoke pretty good English, he said, I speak good English, I could translate. And so I thought, what are we going to do now? So I got the sound room to rig up a microphone in the back of the auditorium, and we have these earphones for the hard of hearing, and I said, give those out to all the Russians, as many as you have. He'll translate from the back. We'll translate in Chinese from the front. We'll see what God's going to do. So we had, you know, 3-way translation, and another 4 or 5 of the Russians accepted the Lord that morning. It was so exciting.
These days, Barrett's church works with mostly Burmese and Nepalese newcomers. But just up the street at Community Baptist Church, their outreach is focused largely on Chinese and Russian immigrants. Bill Fleming leads the Newcomers Committee.
There's a lady named Sandra Boswell, and she boards people, room and board, and one of the guys that she has a boarder was Russian. Eventually he brought his family over. She put the word around the city that she was looking for, these were the needs of the people, and some of it included, in addition to English as an additional language, it also included basic necessities like a bed and a dresser and, you know, mirror. And
Community Baptist, in partnership with 15 other local churches, took up that call. The church also offers ESL classes.
We have classes Wednesday morning with the Russian families primarily, and Wednesday nights we have a large Chinese school.
Do you remember that we talked about...
Kip Holloway runs the ESL class for Russian immigrants.
So I brought it to the church council, and because I'm the missions coordinator for the church. And so they said, sure. Now who's going to teach it? Kip, what are you doing? That was almost like that.
Holloway readily confesses he's not a trained teacher, but his method is simple. Practice makes perfect.
I'll give them a little exercise to do, you know, write me out a paragraph on why you came to P.E.I. and what you like about Charlottetown. And then I'll take it away and I'll correct it, and then I'll give it back to them and I point out their errors. When we have a conversation and they make a mistake, I stop them. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell them what they should have said. You say, I am.
And though he never thought he'd become an ESL teacher, he says the role has been rewarding.
Some are a little more frustrating than others, but by and large, when they come up with the right answer, whatever the answer may be, the right answer, it's satisfying, because 3 months ago they didn't have that answer.
None of the newcomers at either churches were comfortable sharing their stories on camera, something that's common, says Pastor Mark Barrett.
I mean, some of these people, they don't even want to talk about what they've been through. It's a long time before they'll open up and share just little bits of their story. And it just blows you away, you know, when they start sharing what they've been through.
And while both churches make no bones about the fact they share the message of Jesus with the newcomers, they don't force it. Friendship matters most.
So we've just really had to show them Christ's love first and say, you know what, we just really love you as a person, as an individual. And when they begin to trust us and see that we really care for them as people, then we can say, well, this is where that love comes from.
And that's not always easy, he says. Outreach has its challenges.
We've had to learn how to have patience and learn to adapt to their culture and not try to squeeze them into our North American mold. It takes you out of your comfort zone, for sure. Yeah. I mean, we've had to learn how to communicate with them when they haven't had the language. And they bring some food to our, you know, covered dish meals that you look at and you wonder, what is that? And it's interesting to try it, and maybe you don't like it, but it's fun to experience that.
But the challenges, say Barrett and Fleming, have been a blessing to both of their churches in ways they never imagined.
Some of the challenges, I guess, are the pace at which the Mandarin ministry has grown. And they have an 8:30 service on Sunday mornings, which is 60, 70, 80 people large. So they've really taken off. And so we're sort of looking across the church, if you will, and saying, wow, these things are going on. There's baptisms going on by the dozens. And we're sort of saying, wow, God is doing wonderful things here.
It has been a wonderful thing to see the church embrace them. And I think it's given our church a wider view of the world and what the needs of the world are, and a greater empathy for people in the world and what's going on around the world. It's just broadened our scope and perspective, and I think it's really added a spiritual depth and dimension to our church that we would never have had otherwise.
In Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, Bridget Antwi, 100 Huntley Street.